Welcome to my video showing you how to do a leak down test on a diesel. So in this video, first we'll go over what we need. So we will need a leak down tester kit, which looks like this. It comes with the leak down tester. This one also comes with a compression tester. Make sure you don't buy the kit that only comes with either a compression tester or the petrol version of one of these, which would be this, the leak down tester, and those two, because those are for spark plugs on a petrol, and you will need all of these to go in your glow plug holes. You will also need the thinner end, because especially on this engine you can't get that on the end of one of the adapters without hitting parts of the engine, and it just doesn't go on. So you'll need, most importantly, the leak down tester, and the second, or equally as important, is a compressor. Without these two bits you have no chance. So you'll need on this engine a size 10 socket. This is a 12 obviously. You'll need size 10 to get the glow plugs out, and you'll need a 12 for the adapter. You'll also need 2 extensions, because when you come into here, especially not so much on these 3 but on the first plug, you need it to get in that gap. So the engine, this will work on all diesels, but the engine that we're using for this example today is my Ford Mondeo. It's a Mark V and it's fitted with the 1.5 TDCi, which is a terrible engine. But it's especially a terrible engine for the Mondeo because it's too small. It's 120 brake and it's just not enough. It's alright once it's on the turbo, but pulling out of junctions and stuff, it can be a bit sluggish and a bit dangerous, especially if you want to go around something. Anyway, so they're the bits you will need. You will also need an 18 on a ratchet. You don't need that 14 spanner, that was for me to change a airline. And you will need a welding rod, but I'll come to the welding rod and why you will need it in a bit. So what you need to do before you do your compression test is take the glow plugs out. That's the first bit. Oh sorry, no, the first bit is have the engine to operating temperature. The reason being is once all the metal's expanded, the it'll all seat better. So to get your glow plugs out, once you've got it up to temperature, you want to use your fingers and wiggle those off the glow plugs, and then pop your glow plugs out. Excuse me. And then what you're doing next is you're going to get your ratchet and you're aiming to get the pistons to top dead center. So you'll need to put that on the crank, which is down there. You can do that without jacking the car up, and you will just rotate it. Now you want to rotate it clockwise, and pretty much clockwise only. You can turn it back just a tiny bit to be on the safe side. I won't turn it any more than a tiny bit if you go past. And here's what the welding rod's for. Ideally, if you've got something a bit thicker, that's thicker than a welding rod but still thinner than the end of the glow plug to go down the hole. And the reason I say that is you're going to put the welding rod down the hole. So at the minute I've got the front to top dead center. Now if the front's at top dead center, so is the fourth, the last one in line on this engine. And similarly, oh, you know what I mean, the second in line, if that's at top dead center, then so is the third, and then the first and fourth would be at the bottom. So if I take this and I put this down the hole, and you'll need about at least 7-inch, you heard what I said. Now if it's only going in that bit, you're hitting something, so wiggle it about until it goes. Come on, bloody hell. There we go. Right, so once it goes all the way down there, that's, now you know you've hit the piston. And what you'll want to do is you want to turn the crank, and this rod will start going up. Now when this rod eventually gets all the way to the top, when it starts going back down, you know you've gone to top dead center, and then you've gone just past it. So what you want to do is ideally you want to get to that top, and when it stops going up, that's when you're at top dead center. If it starts going down again, you can at that point just rotate it back a touch, but don't start working the engine in reverse. That's a bad idea. Now, the other thing I'll note, especially if you're using a welding rod, is once you start cranking it, just pull it out a little bit, because what I've found happen is the piston can trap the rod between the piston and the block, and it can get stuck, and then if you snap that off in there, you're taking the entire engine apart, so you don't want to do that. So, but I'll show you how we do that when I come to do it on the second one. For now, I'm going to get my adapter, which on this engine is a M8 by 1, which is the smallest of all of them. Now, I've noticed on this that these don't like to tighten up particularly well. I don't know if the length is just, if there's an issue with the length and it's hitting something, but I don't want to over tighten it and break it, so of course that's going to be a bastard. Now,
I forgot to say that in the box comes some PTFE tape. Wrap that around the glow plug, wind it in by hand, and then tighten it a little bit with the ratchet. Don't over tighten it and run the risk of ripping the threads, but don't make sure it's in at least some threads, because otherwise it'll fire out.
right, so got that off there. Now, this is what I mean about, if this was a thicker end like you get on the petrol one, you wouldn't get it over this, because it hits that part there. To be fair, I'm gonna have a bloody job getting it on this one. Alright, we'll come back when I've got it on. That was a bit difficult to get on. Mainly that pipe there so tight, so what I've had to do is to get a screwdriver and just tap it by hand to get it on. I'm not looking forward to getting it back off, mind. So, now that's on there. I'll pop this on here. And then we'll... Oh, my bad. Let's pull it out on this one. Oh, I'd say that's pretty good on that one. So on that, what we got, 5%, if that, 4%. Yeah, so obviously pressure there going in is 100 psi, and the leak down is about 4%, so that one's spot on.
Just a quick close-up image of the gauge so you can see what I mean about the PSI.
So now let's get that off. So you just pull the collar, show you on this bit, just pull the collar up like that and off it comes. Realistically, it would have been easier if I just, well, no, it wouldn't. It would be easier to do if that was off, but it's a lot of work to get that bit off. Right, okay, so we've lost pressure out of the compressor. That's not suddenly got 12% loss. You can see there that that's at 93-ish, and that's at about 87. So again, about 4 or 5%. So front and rear piston are completely fine. So now I'm going to fast forward this bit. No, I'm not. I'm going to show you how to do the top dead center. now we're going to need this, and we're going to need the welding rod. So I'll show you what I mean about getting top dead centre now. So to get top dead centre, I'm going to pop that down the hole. Basically you want that as straight as possible for it to go down. So there we're at. Make sure it's clockwise.
What you're doing is you're putting the ratchet onto the crank pulley bolt and using that to turn it clockwise until the piston rotates. Hopefully you can see the rod going up and down.
There we go, right. But I have to be careful, I don't want this rod to get trapped. So I go up a little bit and I make sure that the rod still pulls out. Oh, and I've dropped it, of course I have. It's never where you put your arm first time, is it? Ooh, that's not what I wanted under a tyre. So again, it's gone up, and I just lift it up to check it's coming out. Right, see at that point now, that rod isn't moving anymore. If I go a bit further, it'll start going down. See, it's going down now, right? So I can at that point wind it back slightly. Right, so we're at top dead centre. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing we did before. Pop the adapter in. I'm sure there's a proper name for them, but I don't know what you call them. Other thing you need to be careful of on this engine particularly is all the shitty little why they've made everything out of plastic. I mean, the thermostat fails because it's made, the entire housing's plastic. All these are tatty and plastic. So you know, you get your spanner on, you slip slightly, and then next minute you've snapped a fuel line or something else, and then you've got to order one of them, and then you've got to wait again, and it just ends up being a fucking farce. Ask me how I know, as they say. No, I'm not doing that too tight, I don't want to get it stuck. Or rather, I don't want to snap it. Now I'm hoping, I think realistically, because I've done cylinder 1 and I've done cylinder 4, and both of those were solid, that means there can't be a break in the head between 1 and 2 or 4 and 3. So if this one's good, then I believe that they're all good. But I will do number 3 as well, just to be double safe. Right, we've dropped down here to about 90 psi. We're a bit lower. We're on 80. What's that? 82, 83, and we're at 79, 80. So again, there's nothing there. Right, here we go then. Come on, get on.
Hopefully you can see on the leak down test there on cylinder 4 I had about 4 to 5% loss. So at this point I was confident, very confident, that it was not the head gasket that was faulty, and it was likely the water pump. But after this video I decided to do a compression test to check if the block had any cracks. It is worth watching that video because it did turn out to be the head gasket, and you will see, well, you'll see how obviously it had failed. So hopefully this video has been some help. If it has, please like and subscribe, and hopefully one day I might get my money back on the leak down test kit that I had to buy just for this car. Thanks.